The new head of the British Army has stated that the UK must be ready to fight a war in 3 years' time. Now, the obvious question here is why? While I understand that you have to maintain a strong and competent army for your own defensive reasons, the last few skirmishes we've been involved in have been a complete disaster. So what have they got in mind? Another oil war in the Middle East, mobilizing against Russia, or some new war that the globalists have cooked up for influence in a certain part of the world? Now, to break each of these down, it doesn't seem likely anything in the Middle East is going to happen. We've already made a lot of a mess there, and we're experiencing that in our home countries now too. On top of that, the major powers out there seem to be pretty on board and staying quiet during the Israel-Palestine conflict. Seemingly the Saudis and the UAE just want a normalization of trade flows. A war with Russia will play well in the media and get lots of clicks, but in reality it's unlikely to happen. The Russians have already supposedly had 500,000 men either killed or wounded since the war began. Secondly, with Donald Trump likely to come into power in America, he's already outlined that he's very eager to strike a deal that creates peace in Ukraine. And that will likely see Russia claim 2 breakaway states in Ukraine they'll claim as a buffer zone between them and the rest of the Western world, and the globalists take control of Kiev, bringing neoliberal economics and pride marches. Of course, the war in Ukraine has always been a proxy war between the Americans and the Russians. That's why they're investing so much money, is to expand their sphere of influence. So in reality, Russia has expended a lot of resources and a lot of men, as well as taken a severe economic impact over the last few years. They're not going to want to maintain that for year after year after year. So what is it we're supposed to be preparing for? Well, ultimately what I think it is a reordering of the global power structure. We've already seen Russia make a major move in attacking Ukraine, but we've also seen China getting more voluble around Taiwan, and the Iranians also getting more aggressive and militant. They're all doing this because they're sensing the global power base shifting. America is of course still the most dominant, but it may not be so in 20 or 30 years. This is why you get cartoons like you're seeing on your screen right now. This does the rounds in the black nationalist circles. As you can see, they've got China, India and Africa towering over the UK and the US with their old slave whips. While these people always ignore that China, India and Africa have had slavery of their own kind too, this is a fantasy of the New World to belittle the Western world and take control. Now, while I don't see that fantasy coming into fruition for reasons beyond the scope of this video, the future does provide us an opportunity to think what we want to fight for and what sort of world we want to live in. America losing its influence in the world may seem concerning for the Western world, but may actually be a benefit for us in the long run, as it allows us to break free from the shackles of globalism and create our own destiny into the future. As I've said before in this channel, if the Western people, the European origin peoples, wish to continue their way of life and their traditions, they're best off joining together in alliances in some sense to try and push back against the forces of globalism in the long run. This is why some people on the right have a secret or sometimes loud admiration for someone like Vladimir Putin, as they see him as some sort of neo-nationalist figure who will fight against globalism for his people. But being married to someone from Eastern European origin, it's been made clear to me that in Eastern Europe, many people don't really see Putin as a unifying figure. They see him as a very isolated man who cares more for the Dagestani Muslim or the Tibetan Buddhist than he would for any European. As many before have mooted, Putin's goals are more about being a neo-Peter the Great than anything unifying European peoples in any sense. So it seems then that the global order is changing, and as I've said many times on this channel, this sort of thing provides us with an opportunity to reconsider the life that we want to live in the future to survive and flourish. These are just my thoughts, however. Do let me know what you think down below, and do consider subscribing to the channel.